begin by telling us about your ministry and your prison work, how it all began?
Well, for myself, I know that God is a forgiving God, and I know that when I was called into the ministry, God has placed in my heart that what I should have done or what I should do is to focus myself on prisoners and inmates. One day I got up, and the first thing came to my mind, and if I say in my mind, it's really from my heart, from God, that told me that I should call the institution here in the city of London, the Elgin Sex Detention Center, and I should speak with the volunteer there to ask if I could come in and to volunteer my time there. I got a tour, I went in, and there it began. And from thence, I became the chaplain for a couple of years at the Elgin Sex Detention Center, and that's where my work began as a chaplain. I went to South Africa in the year 2000 and to visit all the prisons there. And the first time I stepped myself in a prison system there in South Africa, I was amazed. I was taken to a workshop, and that workshop is where these inmates, they build the furnitures, they build clothing for themselves. And it was amazing when I spoke to one of those inmates. He told me that for him to get up every day to come into that shop to do the work that he's doing, he said he was just so wonderfully blessed, amazed of what he feels and how he feels going into that institution every day to do that. And I get the sense from him that that just blesses him, and that he gets up every day believing, knowing that what he is doing in that workshop will be blessing others.
That's incredible. Did you find that same to be true about all of the other prisoners?
No, not
about
everybody.
About most of the other prisoners?
Not really. And I think for ourselves, what we should do is to know that these inmates are there. We don't condone what they do, but what we do is we have to work with them to help them to rehabilitate themselves, that when they come back in the community, they could be good people there.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, if we could somehow instill that same kind of attitude in all prisoners that the one prisoner indicated to you, that would be rehabilitation at its best. Don't you agree?
I do agree. And I think that's the reason why my husband and I, we go to Africa every year. And what we're doing is we are building a home, and we call it the Faith Home. We're building a home for ex-young offenders that when they leave the institution, they have a place to come to. We're going to feed them. We're going to have workshop there. They can train themselves, and then we're going to get them set up to go back in the community. That's why we're doing that, because we know that not because you're in jail. Because you're in jail, it doesn't mean that your hope is taken away. What you need is just someone to come and to let you know that they love you. And because of that, their lives can be changed. I went to a prison in Ghana, West Africa. This young fellow, he was such a beautiful looking young fellow, sits at the front row at the chapel service when we had it, my husband and I. And after the service, I asked the chaplain, I said, well, what is he in here for? This young fellow stole 500,000 cedis, which is about 50 Canadian dollars, to purchase the medication for his sick mother. And he was caught and put in jail. And that gave us that idea in our heart that, you know something, we need to do something for these youth. And that's the reason why my husband and I and our ministry, Abundantly Blessed and Valerie Hibbert Ministry, put together a program that we build this place for these youth that they can have a place to come and to rehabilitate themselves.
Reverend Hibbert, what is the most satisfying aspect for you of your work as a prison chaplain?
When I see one inmate's life changed, come to God, leave the institution, back into school, and doing a great job in school. That is what touches my heart.
Now, in the long-term sense, where do you see your work taking you?
My work is going to be taking me in many parts of Africa, because I am hoping not just to build that place alone in Ghana, West Africa. We are hoping that our ministry will be able to build something maybe in Nigeria, in different parts of Ghana, like in the country area, a place called Kumasi. We're in Accra, which is right now that's in the city. And we're just a little bit out of Accra, like a couple hours out of Accra. That's where we're building the home. And I hope that we'll be able to establish more of these homes. This is the first in Ghana and the second in Africa. Because you see, I think when you're in prison, you're looked upon as just an outcast. And I think that has to change.
Yeah, when you say this is the first in Ghana, what do you mean by the first?
The first rehabilitation home for prisoners, for young offenders.
So, Reverend Hibbert, why has your heart taken you to that part of the world instead of spending more of your time here in Ghana?
Well, when I was in South Africa, I met quite a few chaplains and ministers there. And I got a few letters. And one particular letter asked me, a minister asked me, Reverend Autry, asked me to come to his country. And I spoke with my husband and we decided that we would go. So when we went to Ghana, and when I saw the situation there and everything else, and they showed us around, I said to my husband, somehow my heart is attached to this country. And so we will start the work here in this country. It's not that I couldn't do it in a different country, here in Canada, or I could have done it in Jamaica where I was born, or in England where I grew up. But you know something? Just God has placed me right there for a purpose. And I think the resources there for the prisoners, it's very low. And I think that's the reason why God has placed me there.
So just so we get a clear picture,
yes.
You currently spend typically 8 weeks of the year in Ghana.
Yes.
And that would leave another 44 weeks of the year that you spend basically in London.
That's correct.
But you're constantly in touch with Ghana.
Constantly in touch with Ghana.
Reverend Hibbert,
yes.
You are truly a fascinating lady. To say that you have a full plate would be an understatement. We congratulate you on the fine work that you're doing. May God bless you, and hopefully your good work will continue.
Thank you, Gary, and that's a pleasure.
A pleasure to have you.